All right, welcome everybody. We are live on location in Omaha, Nebraska, BCMC, that is put on by the SBCA, the Structural Building Components Association. And sitting with me is Jess Lohse, and we're going to hop into that in just a second. But as always, at Dave Cooper Live, we are always bringing you the best and the brightest out there, and today is going to be no different. So today we are driving on-site values for framers, builders, real estate developers, off-site manufacturing. Structural building components. What is all the buzz about? Construction efficiencies, the value of time and safety, the synergy between off-site manufacturing and on-site construction. How can the SBCA help you improve logistics, add value to the real estate development process? How can off-site manufacturing help framers and builders create more value for their clients? Jess is going to answer all of those right now today. Right, Jess?
I'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do.
So, all right, well, listen, this is great. So we're in the setup process here, and we're doing our Monday expert interview, but it was just fitting to have you on the show today to talk about, we're getting ready to kick off a big event here. There's people everywhere. I mean, I see MyTech. I ran into the Simpson. We got Alpine. You got the House of Robotics, I think, is also going to be here. Tell us a little bit about what's going on here. But first, Jess, you and I did BSC, didn't we do something a while ago at the Building Systems Council with the NAHB? So for this audience, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're all about, and then we'll hop into what's happening here.
Yeah, well, my name is Jess Lohse, Executive Director of the Structural Building Components Association. We're a trade association representing manufacturers of roof and floor trusses, wall panels, floor panels kind of get thrown in there. A lot of the offsite products, offsite's kind of a process as much as it is a collection of products. So our manufacturers are historically those, truss manufacturers in all those different local markets and, spread out throughout the country. So that's who we represent. A lot of best practices, safety, how do you install the trusses in a safe manner? What are the best practices for the safety in their plants? What, any kind of a collective problem, we try to look at that and try to address it in some way, shape, or form.
Sure. Well, and so with the SBCA, I say this all the time. The SBCA makes up all the components of offsite in all the aspects of it. It's kind of, to me, it's the ingredients of what goes into all the other offsite platforms out there, volumetric, cross, CLT, mass timber, you name it, all the way across the board. So at this event, I'm already seeing it now. There's a ton of new technology. There's a ton of bright minds coming here, a lot of new faces, younger people. What is the vision for SBCA moving forward?
It's one of those on how do you get everybody in that spectrum of some people might just be coming into the trusses for roofs, in some parts of the country versus fully offsite, fully integrated and doing all the different things that way. And it's how do we represent, how do we engage with those folks and, tell their story, allow them to tell their story better. And then, something that we haven't done historically is, at a macro level, try to do some market development, try to convince people of the value of components and understanding that there's no one size fits all approach. It's all about, what works best in your market. How do you, maybe it's floor trusses and roof trusses and walls are on site, or, what are the different recipes you would with those ingredients to work best from your market based on the different constraints. So it's, in one way it's a large, trying to do a lot of different things, but then when you get down to that granular level of how do you, do it for that specific city or region and that kind of, so we got to be flexible in our approach, but we've got to be understanding of how it's done in all kinds of different parts of the country and obviously the continent.
Right. Most people that are coming out to the show, what can they expect throughout the week? And then let's hop into some of the specifics on, where we're headed with technology in the future of the SBCA and what's going to be happening at Offsite in general.
Well, BCMC, I think this is the 40th. It should have been the 41st year, but this is the 40th BCMC based on being absent last year.
Yep.
But it's very traditional in the approach of the show. A lot of the typical exhibitors are here. We've got a lot of new exhibitors as well. And, you're probably going to see a little bit more flair towards the robotics. Like, how do you solve those labor issues in, everybody's got a labor issue, but how do you component manufacturers solve that in their plant? And there's some pretty cool stuff coming around. People are, I don't know, they're probably taking a little bit more measured approach and throwing spaghetti against the wall, but they are working at, identifying the problems. And some of the things that I've seen with robotics that is getting people more engaged about it is using their existing equipment. They're trying to add robots to existing tables and have the actual processes happening. Because you think about it from a component manufacturer, you don't have to retool your entire building, your operation. You don't have to go through that downtime. If you can add it to what you've got, it's going to make it a lot better of a, kind of a turnkey on when you can start receiving the benefits of that automation.
Sure. And with the automation, I mean, it's coming from all different angles. So, I mean, we're looking at lasers, we're looking at robotics, we're looking at applications on iPads and iPhones, right? I mean, even just to visually use it to capture data that's real, in real time, real distance, real measure, that you can go back and analyze or keep notes of. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The software drives so much of what our industry does. We are very, engaged with software, and it's probably the best kept secret in the component manufacturing industry of just how robust that software is and how you can interact with component manufacturers to pull data out for buildings. Because, you think of the entire supply chain. I talk about this fairly often. The component manufacturer has to get it right, because if it's off a quarter inch or an inch or something, it doesn't work. So the component manufacturer has to be very accurate with what they put into the computer, because it's going to drive the accuracy that gets out into the field. So if they're able to do that, imagine all the other data that just develops for the rest of the project going forward. And I'm talking about, material takeoffs, understanding, linear feet of base, all the different stuff that you can really derive from that. And that's one of the things that I think has got some potential for our members and for the industry, is to rely on some of that data and, being able to share that information. I think that's one of the exciting things about the software and everything that's available.
Well, optimization is really what the game changer is in the industry. How can we be more efficient? Lumber and all the different price increases that we've had throughout, the lack of skilled labor within our industry, the lack of young people coming in our industry, it's all pointing towards technology. It's pointing towards automation. How do we work smarter? How do we become more efficient? How do we build a better product?
Mm-hmm. And that, is what I love about trusses. They're efficient by nature, but you can drive additional efficiencies. And not only from the wood fiber and the plates that go out the door at the end of the component manufacturer, but the installation. You start looking at a holistic approach. And I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday that's got a unique product here for bracing that, you can try to eliminate some of that bracing. Yeah. That makes it more efficient in the install phase. And again, by that nature, it's safer, because you're not spending as much time up in the webs off the deck or off the ground, with that. So there's some really interesting stuff there going on there too, to where, when you look at the whole picture, driving efficiencies and incremental approaches, it's pretty amazing what is available here and what, the new ideas, and people are bringing those to market, which is really cool.
Right. So we are in Omaha, Nebraska, everybody, and we are just kicking off BCMC 2021. Jess Lohse is sitting with me. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Twitter. However, Facebook has been having some problems. And if you're having problems out there on your social media platforms, just know it's several of them that are coming in and out. So you're not going crazy and your internet's not bad. Trust you me, we've been at it here for the last 45 minutes trying to figure that out. We do have some noise in the background, but we are setting up here. We're going to be coming to you live all week from BCMC. We're going to be on the show floor. We're going to be showcasing everything that's going on here. We're going to be having vendors on. We're going to be doing some live roundtables. We're not only going to talk about this stuff, Jess, we're actually going to show people why this is the place to be, and this is kind of where the place moving forward is going to be. The amount of people that I know that are coming here, and the people that we're talking about coming here, and I know a lot of the Europeans, and people from other countries are having, it's COVID, right? Having a hard time. I mean, super bummed, and they're super excited that we're going to be live streaming this stuff. So if you have any questions, now's the time to put them in the comments, or just let us know where you're at. Will you be at BCMC? Are you here right now? Stop by, because we're going to be in the SBCA's booth all week. And if you saw it right now, my stuff's a disaster. We're setting it all up, but I guess that's just the way it goes.
That's how these shows are, though. It's a disaster until it's time to cut that ribbon and people flood the show floor. I mean, I've been able to watch this for a few years now come together, and it's such a cool experience to see. Yesterday I got here about noonish. Actually, I think it was the day before. My week's already getting long. But, empty room. There were a couple of people in the corner setting up, and, from then it's just stuff keeps piling and coming in. You see saws go up, these very sophisticated linear saws that manufacturers are bringing to the show. They go together in a couple of days, and then they're actually cutting pieces, and you can see it work. Yeah, to see this transformation in just a couple days is pretty incredible for, and it gets cleaned up. It really gets.
Yeah, really, it will. And you're absolutely right. And I know it's loud, and you guys can probably hear all of that. But it's that's just part of what's going on here. And I have to tell you, when you say solves, if you look at all the different framing tables, the layout tables, the solves that are being put together, it's almost unreal that these things are shipped from all over just to showcase here.
Yeah, and it's really all over the world. It's an international event for the manufacturers to come in that want to reach the North American audience. I mean, and the lasers legitimately projecting the image of the component onto the table to where you get the right plate spacing and rotation and all of that, to the saws and the sophistication there. And then there's people here, consultants, that understand how all those pieces go together as well, because you can't just buy a saw and think you're done. It's how do you employ it to maximize the efficiency in your operation. So there's a ton of different opportunities and different people here that are experts at what they do, and it's the one place for this industry to come together and really talk about it and learn and get ready for next year.
Yeah, I agree. So robotics, how important is robotics moving forward? What are you seeing? What are you seeing out there in the audience? How important is robotics and automation to this industry moving forward? Would love your thoughts and opinions on it. You can do it now live, or send us a message afterwards when you watch us. But from your perspective, Jess, and the members that are currently part of the SBCA and part of the BCMC event, what are they seeing as the future?
They know that they're going to have sustained struggles with labor. That is not a secret. You listen to the economic forecast. We've got one coming up. I think it's going to be Thursday, and I've already kind of had a preview of that. Anticipate difficulties finding labor, in a sustainable way. That You've got to understand that. So if your mission is still to continue to build components, the robotics, the automation, that is kind of the next way to go about it. Obviously, there are some very, steep investments there, but there are people coming to market. And that's one of the things we're doing as an association, is trying to figure out who are those folks that might be outside of the industry that want to come in, that can apply their knowledge in robotics or automation to what it is that we do. Like, they don't have to be experts in trusses or wall panels to engage us. We can share that information back and forth. And that's one of the, strike forces that we're working on for our associations. How do we engage those people? How do we allow them to recognize what the opportunity is for our association or our broader industry? So the robotics, I think, is going to be a trend that continues. It's been there for a while, but we're seeing more of it on the show floor. I think that's just going to continue to grow, and it's going to be a solution. It might not be the only solution, but again, like I said before, we have members all over the country in all kinds of different markets. There's going to be markets where it's going to need it sooner than others, and that's just why they come here to try to get everybody together talking about those things and see what the solutions are going to be. And it's you understand what the other person's doing a little bit easier, and how you apply that. It's not going to be the same way maybe, but you're going to have that perspective, and that's one of the real drivers of value for SBCA, is establishing those relationships and understanding how others that you develop those relationships with, how they do it, how they and it doesn't have to be the solution for you, but that perspective helps you build your own solution.
Right. And it, in the perspective based on manufacturing and manufacturing facilities, whether or even out in the field, there's something for everybody. And increasing your optimization doesn't have to be a complete overhaul of your practice. It can be plug and play. It could be little things, just like documenting what work has been done and how important that documentation is in the future, to understand the building, how it's reacting, how it's not reacting, how the engineering's gone or hasn't gone right with it. So there is a plug and play for every aspect. What is your most exciting thing that you're looking forward to here?
Seeing the people. I mean, it's been, I don't know, a year and a half. I mean, just getting people together, and it's kind of like a homecoming week almost, seeing people that you just haven't seen them for a while, and you see how well they're doing, and that is one aspect of it, which is easy to say, but I'm seriously excited about the robotics. I was telling my son, who's 5 years old, about the robots, and he's a robot kid. I think for Halloween he's been a robot 3 years in a row, so I'm going to be telling him about the robots, and it's probably not what he's expecting in his head, but it's still really cool, and that aspect of it is really interesting. I'm really curious to see what the design software has done for the improvements there. And then there's, I think, some other software pieces that are going to be here, and how do you implement implement that, because that is such a driver for our industry. And then, just getting to see the first time exhibitors that are here, doing some new stuff and kind of having their idea. And it's a really easy way for people to get into the industry and talk to a lot of people and just have a 10 by 10 and like, here's my idea, here's what we're doing. And, it might work, it might not, but, that's kind of the, American spirit. You take it to market and see what happens.
Well, and you're right. Even on the way here from Chicago, we sat next to, I think it was CSI, maybe from Canada.
Okay.
I saw they had automation and equipment, and they were so excited to come. And they were saying the growth that they're seeing is just year after year over the last couple of years is growing so quickly. And they were also looking forward to coming to the show. In fact, we ran into Tim Sims earlier this morning. Tim was a keynote speaker, I believe, earlier today from John Burns. So you have a bunch of big name speakers going to be here this week talking about their experiences, everything from the data in the industry through safety.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about it. We've got our Framer Summit going on as well, which we typically define those as installers of components. We need to do a better job of marrying those two groups up. We are taking that effort on, and I think you're going to see some changes with that next year at this event. But we're already looking at how do you bring the framer and the component manufacturer together, and we're doing that in our organization. So we get to book in kind of the first, I think, speaker was Tim from John Burns, and then Todd Tomalak on Thursday. It's nice. I'm sure they're going to be similar based on the same information, but Todd is a great speaker too for the educational sessions. Right. We also have a safety summit for component manufacturers that really want to drive safety, and we're bringing in a speaker for that. He's also a comedian, so I'm interested to hear the feedback on that, because everybody likes to laugh, and not just at the what you should not do stuff in safety, but hopefully it helps out for driving the point home for everybody that attends that.
And education is such a big part of this, because on a regular basis, we're out in the real world work, right? We're running our manufacturing, running the framing sites. How important is the education part of this each year when BCMC happens for everybody to kind of take a little bit of a break, come out and network, collaborate on ideas? But how important is that education to the manufacturers, the framers, the real estate developers?
It's amazing, because that's one of the great things about our show is the education is driven by the component manufacturer members. When I was a component manufacturer, my employees used to hate it when I would go to this show, because I'd come back with all kinds of different ideas and be like just engaged and invigorated about the business and wanting to try different things. And the different conversations, like, oh wow, there's so much opportunity there. And those are just small little things that you can do. But when you've got a manufacturing operation, those small tweaks add up, and that's what you got to look for. But the education sessions are really amazing for what we do. It's all derived from the component manufacturers and what they want to hear. It's usually component manufacturers leading the conversation in those sessions. So that's the thing. If you look at the history of BCMC, and it's a long history now, there's not going to be every year that people are looking for new equipment. So you have to balance that with education. So if we have a good, healthy balance between the education and the supply side with the exhibit space, that's a healthy show for us. And that allows us to draw attendees that, they might not need a new SOM, but they can learn something about their business and take it home and, provide value for their attendance.
Well, there you go. That alone is invaluable. If you can go and take one thing back to your operations of business and make a change, that can be a significant change, over the life cycle of a business for sure. And that's really what we're looking at here. How about case studies? Are you guys going to be going over any case studies or talking about them?
There's, I think, some opportunity for that. We've been kind of pivoting with our magazine to some of that and getting a little bit more engaged and, understanding new products, different products, how it's applied. The sessions themselves are a little bit more focused. You don't want to get too broad with, okay, here's, a project, but there are those stories out there. And I think our vendors do a really good job of telling those stories, because they're engaged, and they're kind of promoting that as well. They do a good job talking about the industry and how the entire supply chain, and that's something that we're going to be doing, is taking a little broader look at that to upstream with the specifiers and how the code officials receive it, and talking with those folks, and really developing those case studies and talking about them, and then learning what resonates in different markets, because in each of those different cities where component manufacturers, the decision makers vary. Sometimes it's the installation labor that's really driving the show on what components are used and how they're used, and sometimes it's the GC, and other times it might be written into the plans. And so understanding that by market, and then being able to kind of pull a case study out of the hat and say, okay, here's an application. We understand this is your market. This is what we would like to see, for your consideration to use.
Sure. And let's hop into the global market here. So it is not just North America and not just Canada. We're already seeing a global presence of people showing up here. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more in different times, and COVID wasn't happening. But what are you seeing as your role on a global level with the rest of the world?
We need to be a lot more engaging. And we need to be out there kind of talking about what the component manufacturing industry is in North America, what the opportunities are, and try to be more, almost like we got to go out and do some recruiting to get some people involved. There are going to be some people here from, I think there's a gentleman coming in from Germany. There's a few others, but if it was non-COVID, we'd see a lot more. The travel is just kind of herky-jerky right now, but I think we need to engage them on their terms too. We need to go learn about what they're doing, whether it's Australia or Europe, those types of things, to see, because again, it's not going to be the exact same thing to replicate it, but the ideas, and that's what it takes is, how do you inspire that innovation? How do you inspire that idea to bring somebody in? And it could be for one of the large companies that are supplying our industry, which seems like forever, or it could be just a new person that wants to go out on their own. But that's, I think, a role of trying to kind of foster that innovation for SBCA. And how do we do that? We're going to see a little bit more of that, but this is a great jumping off point for those people to come here, show their wares, and see what works in this market, and be able to talk with decision makers, like component manufacturers themselves that are buying, signing the purchase orders. They're the ones that are walking the show floor, so that helps out for that feedback on what could be different, what could be better. And I think with some of the new entrants, people just kind of coming in, I think it's going to kind of spur some competition, which is great for if they go robotics or if they go more automation. People are going to have to up their game a little bit. And the component manufacturer, and ultimately the home builder, or the whoever's owning the project at the end, is going to be the ultimate beneficiary.
Yeah, they really are. And this global conversation is a big deal. And from my perspective, looking at this, there's a lot to learn from a lot of the European market. There are some countries in Europe that 70% of their builds are off-site, whether it's panelization, volumetric, CLT, mass timber, whatever the case is. So they've been doing this a lot longer in some instances than we have. And they also want to do business here, and vice versa. The people here are, with component manufacturing facilities, are looking to do business over there, whether they're suppliers. So let's talk about this collaboration and the meaning of that conversation.
Well, you think about it in Europe, they've had to out of necessity, almost, just the way, their environment is structured. In the U.S., it hasn't been that much. Like, you could get by with not doing some of those things, but if you look at the supply constraints, both on labor, material, all of that, there's going to be necessity that comes out of that. You have to be much more efficient, and that's where you got to look to Europe and some of those places that are doing a little bit more advanced. And that's where that's a trade association. We can't solve everybody's individual problems, but we can look to tackle everybody's collective.
Right.
And that's one of those things that unless we know what those issues are, and that's how we kind of act as that clearinghouse and that central location to get together and talk about those things. So that's where we want to be engaging anybody, really, if it's a random individual or a company, talk to our people, talk to me. That's where we kind of facilitate that conversation, and then we can talk to our members about it and see where are there some opportunities there. But until you start having those conversations, you just don't know. We can't be in that situation where we're just going to hold our ideas to ourselves. We got to be able to talk about them and see, okay, well, if we did this, would somebody buy it? If they don't, no, but maybe if we do a little bit different, that's where the benefits come into the trade association. And we act as kind of that third party. Like, we just want what's best for the industry. We want what's best, and that's going to be what's best for our members. So that's where we kind of, are that intermediary, or that, third party that kind of can step back and look at things.
I didn't bring my soapbox, but I do have one, Jess, and I'm going to tell you, keeping our ideas to ourselves doesn't make sense. Not when you're such a small percentage of the industry. There's so much room, and there's only one way for us to go, and that is up. And I think it's super important that events like this continue on, and we do the collaboration, but even more so on the global scale, like we were talking about. Not only for us here in the United States and Canada, our neighboring country, but also for the next generation that we're looking to come into our industry. How do we bring that next generation into our industry and get them to be part of what we're doing, which is, I always equated to like being an airline pilot back in the 60s. That was the coolest job ever, right? And there was a big rush. But that's kind of where we're at in the trades right now, in manufacturing and framing. It's becoming really cool again. And I think that's an inspiring thing.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that we've got to do a good job with our youth. I mean, like I talked about my 5-year-old earlier, we do a ton of Legos. We play a lot of, building. Kids like to build by nature. That's
right.
So you start there, and then you got to develop it throughout middle school, high school, and get into it to understand what are the opportunities. And you talk, people on the show floor now got into it as a framer, entry level type thing, and now they're like senior vice presidents of large publicly traded companies that are like, holy cow! You look at their careers. So there are upward opportunities for people that get into it, and you just got to recognize those opportunities. And it's such a noble pursuit. I mean, That's how I got into it, and how I loved it is, my grandfather was a builder. He had a lumberyard. My dad was did framing through high school and shortly after, and they started building houses, and I learned, and I was like, this is really cool. We're building stuff. At the end of the day, you see the walls up, and like, that's cool. Obviously, it depends if you want to do that every day forever. That's an option. If you want to go do some different stuff, that knowledge that you gain through the construction, but it's really just engaging and trying to, let people know that this is a noble pursuit. It's, there's opportunities and all kinds of different things. Because, that's the thing about the people you see here at this show. They may have gone through 5 different companies. They just, that's their style. And, like, who are you with now? And they're doing cool stuff. But it's kind of like once you get into the industry, you're going to love it and fall, and really just want to continue. And that's, you think about how cool it is to build homes, whether it's in a manufacturing facility or on site, or, putting together panels and learning those little tips and tricks that make it a little bit easier. That's what it's really cool. So yeah, we just got to get out and tell our stories a little bit better, but, engage those folks when they're a little more impressionable, but, just build on that love of building from the very beginning. I think that's the tactic I'd like to see.
Well, you know what, and you're right, and it is the people. It's a great industry. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. The people, have wonderful knowledge. And to hit on what you were talking about, in our industry, you literally can go to work and see something tangible happen and get rewarded at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the year, with something that you've created or were a part of creating. And just so everybody understands, we have every job out there in our industry. Everything from IT, marketing, manufacturing, robotics, logistics. Logistics is a big one right now.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we talk about logistics, for a second? And, how are the component manufacturers changing or using their logistics to build efficiencies into their process?
Component manufacturers 10, 15 years ago were in the manufacturing business, where they would pump wood with steel plates, nails, whatever component they were building out the door, and that was the big driver. Today, the ones that are going to be the most successful, in my opinion, are the ones that understand the logistics, and that's from, how do you organize the load when it goes out, how is it built, to where it's easy on site. And I was telling this story, I think, earlier today. It's like, back to the building block, if you get 1,000 pieces and it's all jumbled together, it takes a lot longer to put together as opposed to if they're bags with numbers on it, follows the instructions. That's what component manufacturers can do and should do for their framers. And the ones that are most successful, they'll partner together to where they're on that same side of the equation, and then they can install it that much easier. And whoever's ultimately paying the bill is that much better off, as opposed to you ship out 1,000 components and they're all scattered. It's going to take a long time to understand that and go through it and be able to put those together. So that's where the installation and the component manufacturer need to, and that's what I characterize as offsite. Is when that those two pieces are working together. And I think we even need to get a little bit better at engaging people earlier in the, the foundation people.
Right.
The tolerances. I think it's more of an issue of like, oh, well, the slab is this and you can't use components. I think it's more we just haven't told them what we'd like to see, because there's pride in all of those construction processes that if you're like, no, we'd like to see it like this, they're like, oh yeah, we can do that. And that's typically the people that are the best at it, or that's the conversations they relay.
Suppliers. Suppliers are such a big part of the building components industry, and where the future is going. And supply chain issues, everything has been happening throughout the year. But without the suppliers working with all the manufacturers, within the component industry, we wouldn't get very far. This event for the suppliers to shift gears a little bit, I think we should touch base and say, what is their role moving forward, and how are you working with them to help improve the industry?
Yeah, the supply side is very large and dynamic, from the different types of suppliers that are in the industry. Obviously, the metal plate companies are very closely tied to the wood truss industry, and we're brothers. We're tied at the hip. We're not quite twins, but we're a little, maybe a year or two apart. But their success is ours, and vice versa, and that's where. We've realized that in the last several years, and we've been approaching it that way, to where instead of it being an adversarial, like, oh my gosh, there's a little bit bigger plate on this joint than what it used to be. It's like, well, there's probably a reason for that, and being able to have those conversations. And that's one of the really good trends that I'm seeing between their organization and ours, and their companies and ours, is that communication and being able to, okay, how do we tackle this together? Like, obviously we want the product to be engineered and to be based on sound engineering, and that engineering can typically be explained, and that's just having those forums to talk. And we've been doing a really good job of that with SBCA. The Truss Plate Institute is kind of our partner association on that side of it. Their leadership there, both of the members and of their executive director Jess Lohse, has been doing a great job. Him and I talk literally all the time. It's great. We went to rival schools out of Montana, so that even adds a little bit more to it. But so shout out to Jay there. But that's part of it. But then there's all kinds of other suppliers to the industry that it's not just 4 companies here. There's a significant amount of companies that supply that, and that's where a lot of the ideas come from. Things that they're trying. Different machinery. They do they cut their apple a little bit different than what the other guy does, and that's really cool about it. And that's where our manufacturers are able to come in and look at that, and they're like, oh, well, I like that relationship. And that's the other cool thing about this week is it might not be a transactional relationship like you're used to with your vendors. You can if you're at the 5K run, or if you're at one of the educational sessions and you're talking to them, you can develop that relationship to where it's not just, okay, I'm going to buy this for that. And that's where long-term relationships really there's a lot of value in that.
There is a lot of value in that. And with the changing in automation, with the robotics, which is going to be so much fun to talk about, I can only imagine how that changes suppliers' thoughts on what they can provide, because it's no longer just has to be moved around by humans. It can be moved around by machinery that can lift much larger pieces of whatever it is to help speed up the production.
Yeah, and that's really, they're looking at it as a little different lens than what we are. They've got a lot of customers that they can talk to and pull, and they try to, figure out a solution that's going to work for as many of the customers as possible. So, there's that aspect of it. And then it's, had a couple vendors that are a little bit newer, they're newer to the industry, and listening to them, and they're like, okay, we know robotics, but we don't know components. Tell us. And that's where sharing that information and coming back to that, I'm excited to have a conversation with them in a week or two after they've digested what happens at this show, just to see like are they going to want us to have another one in 2 months, or or they need a full year to digest the ideas. But that's the cool thing about the opportunities that are here, and really we're at the cusp of, obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but there's a lot of need to do some really cool stuff. And I think, as we emerge from this, it's going to be one of those that I think the next 5 years are very exciting for this industry, the construction industry, and everybody involved.
How can it not be, Jess? I mean, it's like if you were here, you would get it. This is what I'm trying to say, and this is what we're hoping to bring to them all week on Dave Cooper Live. If you were here, you would understand. There's excitement. There's things being set up all around us. but the technology in the future is starting here, and this is an exciting place. At least for me, I've been doing this a long time. As a modular builder, and then components, and now the Dave Cooper Live show, and everybody that I've been talking to, not only here but before the show, is really excited about where the group is heading. You've had how long have you been the executive now?
Just over a year.
Right. So there's I just want to make sure I had it right, because there's been some changes in the executive panel, and you really are looking at taking it to a whole different level moving forward in the future, and that's what's so exciting to me.
Yeah, we've got a ton of opportunities ahead of us for SBCA. Our executive committee's done a great job navigating some difficult times over the last several months that COVID kind of brought on, along with some other stuff, and that. Really, they've set us up for success. And I mean, that's the thing about not only the construction industry being really cool, SBCA too. We've got a lot of opportunities, things that we may not have done prior that we're going to be able to do, and going out and forging those relationships and reestablishing and getting to know some folks and organizations and entities a little bit different. But there's some cool stuff happening there with the association as well, which I'd encourage you to check us out, get to know us a little bit more, come to our meetings when they happen next year, and just kind of engage us however you want, whether it's following us on, LinkedIn or, even on some of our email stuff. But there's a lot of opportunities with SBCA, and we're really looking forward to it. And, just how we're staffing it to, the different types of projects that we're working on and those sort of things. It's an exciting time for our association.
It's going to be a really exciting time. Well, listen, so we have golf outings, we have bike rides, we have cocktail hour, we have, what else am I missing? What do we have? Education sessions. You got all the booths, all the vendors. What after hour event are you looking forward to the most? Is it golf, biking, or drinking?
It's probably going to be my bet. Rest is in short supply this week, but and that's the thing is our staff were distributed throughout the country, right. So we don't work side by side. It's not like we're a cubicle over one way or another. So engaging with them, talking with them, having dinner, all the different component manufacturers, because I've been in this, I'm kind of getting up there where I've been around long enough that. A lot of friends that you're like, oh wow, you even forget that they're coming, or so it's just with them. The event that I'm probably looking forward to the most, which actually happens early, is the 5K. That's a cool event that people are they pull themselves out of bed early, go run a 5K, and the camaraderie, the spirit, the people talking.
I'm gonna run the 5K.
Are you?
Yeah, why not? Can I do it live? I'll bring my camera.
Yeah. That would, we'll see how
people will love that, wouldn't they?
I think we actually run to Iowa and back. I think
really?
It's across the bridge, but it's not that obviously. It's a 5K. But it's I haven't looked at the course specifically, but I know Joe Canapel's going to have it set up and working well for us. But it's a fun event. I've always enjoyed that, and you don't realize how competitive people are until you're out, at 6:30 in the morning running 5K, and it's usually my best time of the year when. For running wise.
Competition in our industry, really?
Yeah.
Come on, like it exists? No, really? Well, listen. I mean, we have a lot of people here that have big personalities. They have great teams, but like you said, it's that banter back and forth, just like you have in colleges and high schools and everything else. And I think that's what's fun about it, and getting out there and sharing that banter back and forth and getting your butt whipped by somebody you didn't know would whip it, running. That's the fun side of it.
Yep.
To me,
people that, you had no idea just how good of an athlete they are. And you talk to them, you see them, and they're doing everything. You see them out there running, like, ooh, yeah, that's
right.
And then people of all ages too. I mean, some of these folks, like, when I get to that age, I hope I can just run, let alone, they're beating me in, the 5K. Right. It's impressive, and it's just a fun event, and, one of those things that just brings people together. And then it's like you see them at the show floor later, and like, yeah, good job today, and how many people say good job as they're passing. It's an out and back, so it's a cool experience.
A healthy workplace and a healthy workforce.
Yeah.
And you're including that here at BCMC 2021, which is amazing. All right, so we are going to be live all week. So you're going to see us at random times and our scheduled show on Wednesday. We're going to do some live roundtables. We're going to be talking about technology and robotics and some other things. We're doing a bunch of interviews that we'll release, after the show as well. But this should be a very exciting week, and if we can pull it off, we might even live. If I can commandeer a golf course or a golf cart, you might see me flying around the golf course live, showcasing all the fun before too many cocktails, of course, or maybe after.
I don't know. We'll see.
So it ought to be a lot of fun. So listen, everybody, if you are not here, it's a shame, but we're going to bring it to you live. So there is the value of that, but we're going to move this industry forward. We're going to showcase the people that are doing it better, just like Jess Lohse is doing by having us even here. So thank you for having us come out here. We're going to get everything set up, and we're just going to have fun, and we're going to showcase people that are doing it better. And I think that's what, the SBCA is all about, and what this show BCMC is all about, is who's doing it better and how are we getting to the next level. And that's a real focus here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. This is a big deal for you and Jennifer. The team has been great, and they did a lot of work here in the last few minutes with technical difficulties. The production is class act. I appreciate you being here, and this is fun. I'm glad you're here.
No, well, listen, we appreciate it, and we're pulling it all together, and it's only going to get better as we go forward. So I'm seeing Jen's putting a little note up here. She says, you got to ask Jess this. How can we collectively drive this message, driving more collaboration moving forward?
I think persistence, and that's, when it comes down to the marketing of anything, it's easy for a lot of our board to say, well, we said that once, didn't everybody listen? It's like, well, marketing's a little bit different. You got to say it several hundred thousands of times. We just got to be persistent and keep doing it, and keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. It's amazing to have that platform in our industry for people to share their experiences, their knowledge, and you're going to see a lot more persistent message from SBCA moving forward, which
we're looking forward to as well. All right, listen, everybody, if you do not follow us on YouTube, please follow us on YouTube. If you are not following the SBCA on LinkedIn and other platforms, please go out and follow them. And of course, Jess Lohse. If you're not following Jess, you're wrong. You should be following Jess Lohse and everything that they're doing to make changes in our industry. My name is Dave Cooper. We will see you all week, so look for that little bell to be ringing as we go live, and join us for some great conversation. Any final words other than come on, join us?
Yeah, if you're not here this year, you can always be here next year, so come on out.
That's it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in maybe a couple hours, maybe tomorrow, but we're going to see you soon. Bye now.